evening, I'm Enari Darklore and welcome to Churikua. Tonight, in our third compilation from our second season, you will listen the legends of the Smoking Devil, the White Lady from Matavejit, the Gongers from Sylt Island, and the Devil's Tree. Remember that the night awaits for you. Who tends to travel often? I do. Personally, I enjoy driving. And although many would say that even thought going by bus may be more comfortable and you can just rest while you arrive at your destination, in my case, I enjoy traveling more when I have the opportunity and driving. Something that I consider practical is that I don't have to spend on cabs. And if I want to bring souvenirs or something that I would be more complicated to bring on a bus, I have less inconvenience since I just put it in the trunk and that's it. Unfortunately, right now, even though it is something I enjoy, I feel unable to take the wheel. I have not even been able to get into my car and go shopping at the nearest supermarket and bring my groceries. All thanks to the fact that a couple of nights ago, I just took advantage of being invited to the wedding of one of my great friends from college. According to what he told me, the wedding ended up taking place in Cuautla, since both families lived there. So I couldn't miss the chance to attend, not to mention that it was not a long distance. In order to attend the wedding, I did everything necessary to attend. That included changing my brake with another colleague. That day, I got up early and went to Cuautla. During the ceremony and the party, there was nothing out of the ordinary. Just the opposite. I had a lot of fun. I enjoyed myself a lot. So much that when I realized it was already very late. The next day I had to go to work. So I went back to my car, put on some music, and started my way home. At that moment, I knew it was going to be crazy. The next day, surviving on supercharged coffee, but it had been worth it. So I started the drive. I saw the time, and it was only a few minutes to 3 a.m. I knew I would sleep just a few hours before going to work. Well, worse is not sleeping, so I just concentrated on the road. This road is known for having many curves, so I had to be very careful, not to mention that we are talking about it was already very late and I had to be careful on any accidents or drunk I could run into on the road. I barely made it one stretch and I found a man leaning against a signpost, smoking a cigarette. It seemed a little strange to me, but I preferred not to think too much about it. I continued focusing on the road when at another sign I saw him. Again, that man, smoking his cigarette as if he was enjoying it, without paying attention. The music in my car started to fail, leaving an interference sound as if it was the radio, but no, it was the music I had in my car. It was not the radio. It was impossible it to fail since everything was in excellent condition. I started to get even more upset. However, in two more signs, I saw him there again with his cigarette, and this time he turned to look at me. I felt his eyes burn in flames. I knew a lot of terror. I felt it when I saw him. He was a man with good bearing and wearing a suit. Elegance was reflected in his bearing, something that made me feel uneasy. I saw him at two more signals until suddenly I saw how he deliberately crossed a curb in a hurry, got into my lane, and stared at me. I did everything humanly possible to brake, and it was so abruptly that I even hit myself with the steering wheel. I only saw a brief moments that I leaned against the hood of my car, finished his cigarette, and threw it as if to extinguish it on the ground with a stomp. I stood, tried to calm down, and for some reason my car wouldn't start until after a few tries it did. It turned I turned off the stereo, and for some more reason it started again. So I just turned the volume all the way down. I continued the rest of the way with my heart pounding, praying between murmurs and sobs that that man couldn't show up again. Finally arriving in Cuernavaca, I could breathe, at least a little. Trembling, I entered house. I found a piece of bread and ate it. I couldn't get his image out of my head. Sleep left me. So I just sat there looking out of the window at my car until it was almost down. I took a quick shower and went to work. What would be my surprise? I saw that man's hand and the cigarette burned on the hood of my car. That day my mind was barely on work. It was as if I was working by inertia, as my mind tried to explain what I saw last night. At lunchtime, I talked to another friend from Cuautla who had attended the wedding and wanted to know how everything was going. I told him what happened, and he told me that the character I saw was the devil, who at about 3 a.m. smokes his cigarette calmly, watching the passers-by pass by and appearing at every signpost along the road, sometimes seeing them from a distance, other times looking the other way. It is said that sometimes he throws himself at cars to cause an accident and derail them. He started to appear because while the road was being built, some workers found gold but decided to tell their boss, who, unable to cope with his greed, killed all those involved and buried them in Cañón de Lobos. Some people says that it is in the caves, others say that it was along the road, but the devil is simply waiting to find those guilty to make them pay, and if he can take some unwary person with him, it can already be considered profit for him, due to the money is his. I still cannot get the image of the devil out of my head, and that, like my friend Emiliano, they admire my driving skills, because if it weren't for that, my destiny could surely be different. Now that you know what happened to me in Cañón de Lobos, would you dare to drive there at that time of night? Every time I am in Matavejit, it's a journey to the past. However, I have to tell you that a few days ago, I visited the Castillejo, a cistern of Muslim origin that believes in times of yore was an albacore and now is still uninhabited, standing despite the weather inclemency and its abandonment. It is still there, reminiscent, and as a trace of what it once was. I remember standing and hovering at dusk, watching the sun go down, and just thinking about how much time and events it has been able to witness. However, to my surprise, I saw a white figure pass by, in white clothes walking around. Sobs could be heard, but when I paid attention, her feet were not visible. I was terrified when I saw her. I went out to escape. I arrived looking for some place where I could eat something substantial. I arrived at a local tavern, where I asked the manager about that ghostly white figure that lurked in the castle, giving a melancholy and desolate air to her already deteriorated presence that promised to have had better times. The good man told me the following story. Many years and centuries ago, in the times of the splendor of the Castillejo in Matavejit, which in those times was inhabited by a family of noble birth, owners of the castle and the land surrounding it. The family consisted of the lord, the lady, and their 3 children. They were well known for being just and good. Not to mention that the lady was also famous for being virtuous and extremely beautiful. There was a convent, an abbey, which belonged to the order of Saint Basil and was called Santa Maria de Oviedo. One summer afternoon, the lady went out of the castle accompanied by her maidens and crossed the path with the abbot, who greeted her and put himself at her disposal. What the lady did not know was that the abbot had fallen in love with her and that every meeting with him was to win her favor. For in his mind lurked the idea that if God had put her on his road, on his path, he should do everything possible to win her heart. Whenever the paths crossed, and even in religious celebrations, he would gradually let her see his intentions, which she, with great ingenuity and discretion, rejected, something that robbed the abbot of his sleep and kept him awake at night, which robbed him of his peace and quiet. So determined to succeed, he took advantage of the lady's outing to follow her, reiterate his love, and even send her letters, and as expected the lady ignored him and rejected each of his intentions. Little by little, both ended up getting tired of the situation, the abbot of her rejections, which made his love become an obsession that now emanated rejection and hatred. And the lady, in turn, in addition to being fed up, opted to leave the property in cases that were merely necessary. The weather was about to change. Just as the summer came to an end, this unhealthy obsession was about to reach the same point. So the abbot, eagerness to put an end to this obsession, decided to give her an ultimatum. The lady fed up with her confinement. left her chambers and went for a walk in company of her maid, as she had not done for some time. He again approached her and without any scruple or dissimulation, without beating around the bush, he said to her, "I offer you my heart, my love, along with the opportunity to be happy. If you reject it and do not agree to my pretensions, happiness will turn into misfortune, making you the most unhappy woman on the face of the earth." The lady, keeping her manners and composure, turned a deaf ear to this warning. Like so many others, rejected it, and soon after not only ignored the warning, but also considered it forgotten. Days went by, and there was no trace of the abbot around the castle. Everyone had forgotten what had happened, and if anyone remembered it, it was only a fleeting memory. Until one day, a lad went very early in the morning to fetch the water from the well, but something prevented the bucket from reaching the water. So more servants were required to look for the cause of the blockage on the well. To their surprise, what was blocking the well were the bodies of the sons of the lords of the castle. All three were lying there. Once the Lord was notified, everything was plunged into a dismal sadness, both for the lords and the servants. The mistress, the lady, plunged into deep sadness and remorse, remembering the abbot's last threat, which she had carried out. She did nothing but cry for having lost her children, her great pride, without any reason to leave the castle, until finally her agony and little desire to live without her children led her to die of sadness. The Lord, already in the castle, surrounded by sad memories and pain, tried to continue with his life, but he could not, despite his attempts. But he never recovered. Without any hair, with his family already broken, he joined the misfortune, leaving this world shortly after his wife did. The castle was uninhabited. Time did its thing. The wars diminished the peace of the place, and the changes of owners caused by them, until the castle was left there, alone, and at the mercy of neglect and time. It is said that the lady in white is that lady in the glow of the night, that is walking dressed in white with her hair loose and waving in the wind, still lamenting the death of her children and not having taken seriously the abbot's threats, walking through what was her home, or rather the one that to this day continues to be and will continue to be her home. My whole family has lived here for as long as I can remember. We are originally from Sylt, an island that has made a name for itself as a great tourist destination to visit. You can imagine what it's like to see tourists visiting and enjoying our island. However, the high cost of what is involved here makes that not everyone is encouraged to visit, and if they visit us, almost always do it as at some special time, and according to some have told me, after saving and take it as a purpose and even as a great idea for a honeymoon. It was not always like that. Long ago, our life was simpler and less flashy. We lived with a certain tranquility, but obviously always at the mercy of the dangers of being near the sea. I consider myself someone who respects traditions, but with certain reservations. In some cases, although sometimes, you begin to question whatever the stories. I consider myself someone who respects traditions, but with certain reservations in some cases. But you also begin to question whether the stories are based on something to entertain or about their veracity, something that makes you think that not everything is what it seems. A few days ago, when I woke up, I felt in my bed the smell of the sea, as if I had dropped seawater on it and let it dry inside. It's strange. I didn't understand it, so I just washed it or changed it. This had never happened to me before. I hear in my dreams someone telling me, "Don't forget me. Don't forget me. Help me. Help me." Repeated like an echo inside my mind. Every night was a torment until I simply prayed for an answer. I hear that same voice. It was Carl. I could see him wet on the shore of the beach. He was walking towards me and asking me for help. I asked him what was wrong, and he kept asking me for help. Suddenly, I reached him. I felt his cold hands on my back, hugging me. I felt the smell of the sea and woke up. To my surprise, my kill was once again in the same circumstances. I had to hurry to get on my day-to-day life thought. I kept thinking about him. Carl was my boyfriend. We just broke up a couple of days ago. It was normal that I didn't call him and didn't try to. After all, I was the one who decided to end the relationship. Carl was devastated. I guess I started to feel a little remorse for having ended the relationship, and that's probably why I dreamed about him. It was a very nice and long relationship. After all, taking into account the events, it was the best. In case you are wondering, we broke up because I will be leaving the island in a few weeks, and he wanted and had everything to do the rest of his life here. He has no desire to leave from here, something that I do, and not finding a middle ground, I decided, despite what I was feeling, to break up with him. All this made me think that I should call him, look for him, just to make sure that everything was alright. I called him and sent me to the mailbox, which was normal. After the way things turned out, I decided to go to his house as soon as he got off work. I waited and went to look for him. I didn't find him. I assumed he went out with some friends, something usual for him. The next day, I sent him messages, made phone calls, and still no answer. I decided to go to his work, and to my surprise, his co-worker said that since we broke up, he had then come. They were worried. At first, they thought he might have a cold. After all, he had not missed more than 2 consecutive days without notifying. We decided to go to his house, but again, everything was in silence. Fortunately, I still have the key he gave me, so I broke it with me and we decided to go inside. Once inside, everything was almost in its place. And I said almost because I could see some bottles of alcohol in the kitchen. I looked all over the house, and what was my surprise? In his room, on his bed, was a picture of us that he had framed, a letter, and a small box. I opened the letter, and it said, "My beloved Eva, I am writing you these lines to apologize in case I don't make it back. You know how much I like to go to the seashore to clear my thoughts. You know, I have thought about our life together. I am not able to go on without you. Even, as you may realize, it was already thinking about taking the next step. You know how much it means to me to stay here. I find myself unable to live anywhere else. I know you will be happy away from here, even without me. Forgive me. If I never come back, you will know that the sea took pity on me and didn't want to see me suffer anymore without you. Forgive me for not being who you wanted or who you needed. I wish you all the best, and I ask you to save this ring, even though it will no longer have the desired meaning. At least keep it with you along with this photo, so you will never forget me. Always yours, Carl." Now I understood everything that had happened. I was sorry for having come so much, for being responsible for his death in some way. I could only cry. I collapsed on the floor. One of his co-workers came to comfort me. I could barely articulate a word. They took it upon themselves to call the authorities. Once they gathered enough information, they allowed me to keep the letter, the photo, and the ring. It is worth mentioning that from that terrible day on, it was all over. I only dreamed of him once more. This time, besides being wet, the dream was different. He told me that he loved me and that I should never forget him. He thanked me for everything and hugged me. I promised not to forget him, and that was the last time my sheets woke up wet and smelling of the sea. It is a local tradition and generally known by the lonely people of the area. Carl, taking his life in the sea, became a gonger, returning from the dead to visit me, until I found the truth and warned me that he was no longer with us. Carl's body turned up days later, right in front of the lighthouse. Now he finally rests in peace, and I wear the ring. I later learned he saved so hard to buy and to fulfill my promise to never forget him. I live in Port St. Lucie, Florida. I have lived here since I was born. I have to tell you that it's always been considered quiet and safe, despite the events that have happened, which, in my humble opinion, have to do with society and those who, regardless of their origin, come to disrupt our peace without being part of it. Here there is a small but cozy park. However, when you walk through it, you find a tree that breaks all that peace and tranquility. This tree is known as the Devil's Tree. At first, I never knew why. However, as any local knows, there is never a lack of challenges to visit it at night to test your courage. Ever since I saw it, that tree has given me a bad feeling. There is something unsettling about it. When I was about 13 years old, some friends and I arranged to sneak out of our houses and meet at midnight at the entrance of the park. The idea was to go with only our cameras and flashlights. The only thing we knew at the time that the tree was haunted and that there were rumors of rituals being performed on it. Something we found extremely interesting and wanted to go to show off, like many others at the school, that we were very brave. At the entrance, Mike, Luke, and I met there. We walked and went to the tree. The first thing we felt was a stench like a dead animal. We assumed it was probably a bird or a squirrel. We decided to shine the flashlight and take some pictures. We alternated and took pictures of each other in the tree. However, the strange thing started when we rested a little at its feet. We sat down and suddenly felt as if we couldn't stand up. Lutz's family was religious and soon started praying again and again and again until somehow, as he giggled and tried to get up, he managed to get up and lift Mike up, and Mike and him then helped me up. No wonder we ran outside. I took a look at the tree and there was a strange mist around it, shadows on its roots. We ran with all our might to the entrance of the park. Once there, we went over what we would tell the others. As you can imagine, we told only what was convenient for us, and taking into account that the photos were blurry. Although we achieved our goals, we kept thinking about what happened to us until I decided to tell my brother Ethan, who, besides telling me that he did something similar to my age, told me the truth of this sinister tree. According to what he told me, in the 70s, more specifically in 1972, Gerard John Shafford, a policeman who, taking advantage of his job, kidnapped young women to rape them and take their lives, something he did more than once in that place. He then was caught. It is believed that there were from 9 to more than 30 victims, taking into account that the tree and its surroundings were considered a distant spot with no passing by at that time of night. My blood ran cold when I heard about this. I told him what happened And according to what he told me, he and his friends did something similar, only in his case, they hear footsteps and as if they hear someone crying. He even said that one of his friends sat down at the roots of the tree and apart from a slight shiver, nothing else happened. As the days went by, we started to research a little more, and to our surprise, we realized that Gerard John Schaffer was dead. He was murdered by his cellmate in 1995, and doing a little account, Ethan went to that tree before that year, and me some years after his death. How much evil can be left in a place that could bring us calm and tranquility? Not to mention that now here is still this cursed tree which already tried to cut down and has never been achieved. So in the doubt, is it Gerard John Schaffer who is guarding this tree or the devil himself after such heinous acts committed in this place? Now, tell me, what do you think?